a Maoist liberation war. They might have been influences, but it was more so influences probably from the Middle East, from Palestine, from Algeria, from the liberation wars or the liberation struggles in the Middle East. In 1978, after the Turkish left was crushed by the Turkish state, with the killing and the hanging of a lot of Kurdish youth, Turkish youth leftist leaders, Öcalan thought, I need to create my own movement. So he did. In 1978, the PKK was founded. Until 1999, the PKK waged a liberation war, a guerrilla war, an asymmetrical war against the Turkish state. 40,000 people died, most of them Kurds. Thousands of villages were burnt down. Millions of Kurds were displaced, and this was the Turkish state strategy to dry up the river in order to kill the fish, basically, the PKK being the fish. So they displaced a lot of Kurds who were supporting the PKK, created a new working class out of the Kurdish people, who were the poor of the poor of the poor, basically. And until 1999, Öcalan was forced out of Syria. He went on an odyssey, almost a 3-4 month odyssey across Europe. No one gave him amnesty, and then in a CIA, Mossad, MI5 plot, he was handed to Turkey on a plate, to do with him what they would. What Öcalan did was, he called a ceasefire, and he said, not that Öcalan started saying this only when he was caught, he'd been saying it since 1993. But then he said, we can't resolve this matter, we can't resolve this issue by dividing our struggles along nationalist, ethnic, religious, class, patriarchal, sexist lines, basically. And his readings in prison, mainly readings of Murray Bookchin. I don't know if you've come across him. He's an anarcho-syndicalist who was also an ex-Marxist-Leninist, an American who was kind of marginalized also by the Communist Party of America and the left, because he dared to say basically that the working class wasn't the main class for liberation. He said basically the working class, just through working and being workers, are indoctrinated to carry the hierarchical structure which the state represents within their own beings because of the hierarchy within the working place. So the working class do not essentially have a liberational or revolutionary spirit, position, whatever. And he said that the opposite of this was to organize not strictly along class lines, but to fight hierarchy and oppression wherever it may be found. So within the family, within the workplace, within the systems of communication, anywhere you might find hierarchy, it goes further back into history than class struggle. It's 10-15,000 years old. It's not just with the rise of class structures or class-based civilization, but it's much older than that. Öcalan read this. Öcalan also read Middle Eastern mythology. He read about the civilizations. He read about Sumeria. He read about matriarchal societies. He read about primitive communal societies. He reread Hegel and kind of reformulated a dialectic, not along Marxist lines, but along Öcalanist lines now. He's got a different conception of the dialectic. So basically, he read these 20th century, 19th century, 20th century thinkers, mostly who were still Marxist or post-Marxist, and he came to the conclusion basically that the emancipation of the Kurdish people would not come along national lines, basically. This would only lead to further warfare, further conflict. A Kurdish nation state would only strengthen capitalism, would only strengthen capitalist interests in the region, because it would lead to more division, more warfare with the states that are already occupying Kurdistan. Now, it doesn't reject Kurdish liberation, but it says Kurdish liberation is tied in with the liberation of all the other classes, all the other oppressed peoples, all the other oppressed genders in the region, not just along male and female lines, but all the other genders as well. Obviously, in the beginning, a lot of people didn't understand what Öcalan was saying, because for 30 years the Kurds had fought for something which was tangible. And what is that? A nation state. The Turks have one, the Iranians have one, the Iraqis have one, the Syrians, the Arabs have 21. You know, everyone's got a nation state. Why don't we have one? So there was, you know, there was a lot of internal squabbling, fighting, arguing. Öcalan had to clarify his ideas. He had to intervene. You know, some people said Öcalan's completely lost it. He's completely become an anarchist. You know, the Kurds can't find liberation. We reject Öcalan as a leader. Some people said Öcalan, you know, what's he talking about? How can men and women be equal? You know, how can women wage a war? You know, other people said, you know, how can Öcalan accept gay people or lesbians or transgender people into the struggle? We can't have this. These are marginal people. The majority of the Kurdish population are religious. So, you know, it was a very difficult, strenuous time of upheaval within the Kurdish movement in the last 15 years. But now these ideas have started to take root within the people at the local level, and the people can see the benefits of this. And the Rojava revolution, the Rojava experiment, has shown the people that this can work if people don't meddle. If you know, I call ISIS, you know, the hitmen of international finance capital. If they're not sent to attack these alternative systems, if bourgeois or Kurds who only think about Kurdish liberation don't attack it or don't try to renounce it or defame it in the eyes of the rest of the Kurdish people, if they allow this system to flower, then this system can flower, because the people in the Middle East, they have everything that they need to be able to exist without being susceptible or without needing anything from outside. They have oil. They have a strong agriculture. I mean, we've completely destroyed agriculture in the Western world, and that's what they're trying to do to the Middle East as well. More than anything else, we need agriculture, because that's what we feed off. In Kurdistan, the Turkish state, the Iraqi state, the Syrian state tried to destroy agriculture, and the reason was to sorry? Well, exactly, that's, you know, one of the well-known ones. Try to destroy the basis for any alternative life, basically, any form of alternative experience that the people can have along these lines. You know, and the left are to blame to a certain degree in this as well, the Turkish left especially, because they see agriculture or living in a field or living in a village as being feudal. You know, it's completely, you know, disregarded, because revolutionary struggle can only happen in the factory. Revolutionary struggle can only happen in the city. Revolutionary struggle can only happen where modernism has come to, or where people are modern. It doesn't work like that. We see society as being very rich. Now, Kurdish people deserve to exist along religious lines. That, you know, have the freedom to exist. So you can have religious people in your society. You can have, I don't know, bourgeois. You can have communists. You can have socialists. You can have anarchists. These ideas need to be able to find their reflection and have the opportunity to organize and represent themselves and present themselves to the people, so that the people can choose. We believe in the people to make the right choice. So sometimes people criticize us, for example. So what about, you know, after the revolution in Rojava, are you going to allow the bourgeoisie? Are you going to allow the bourgeoisie to organize? Are you going to allow private property? Yes, there will be private property, you know, we say, because we're not completely in opposition to the system that exists already. We believe that we are the antithesis to this thesis, to this system, and there's going to be a synthesis that is created. We're not in denial. We're not in denial. Like, we have discussions with our Turkish revolutionary leftist comrades, Marxists, they're Marxist-Leninists, and they, you know, accuse us of sometimes of being too soft or not understanding the forces of history, you know, because the bourgeoisie will inevitably swallow you if you give them the opportunity. They will inevitably make business deals with big business, with capitalists across the world. They will eventually bring capitalism to the area where you've created your system. If you don't believe in the inherent, and we believe in the inherent socialism of human beings, if you don't believe in the inherent socialism of human beings, you will not believe that human beings can make the right choice, given the conditions to make that choice. Now, what the system is doing, and what we can relate to the movement here, is that the system is not giving us the opportunity to sit over there. It's saying you can sit somewhere, but it can only be here. In fact, you know, that's something that only I can give you. You haven't taken that yourself. It's something that I'm giving you the opportunity to take from me. What we're saying is that the more we limit, the more we push capitalism, capitalist culture, capitalist modes of relations to the margins, the more we can bring socialistic, anarchistic modes of relation, modes of production to the center. So at the moment we're at the periphery, we're at the margins of what's going on. But we're saying that if the system gives us the opportunity to organize, if it doesn't prevent us from organizing, then we can organize people. We can say to people, we have an alternative. We believe in ourselves, we believe in our organizations, we believe in our ideology, we believe in our arguments for creating a better system. But the system isn't allowing this. Now I'll come to, I hope this is making sense. Is it making sense? Now I'm going to come to what's happening in Turkey, because there's a peace process going on in Turkey at the moment, or a